inside of Uganda, the next step, before you think about selling to the United States, you might say to yourself, let me start selling some in Kenya, or let me start selling in Tanzania, or Rwanda. And so part of what we have to do is to find additional ways in which Africans can also trade with each other. Last point I will make, because it's related to trade and capacity building. You know, I just came, as I said, from Senegal. And one of the things that we were featuring was our Feed the Future program and a food security alliance that we're creating here in Africa. And we've already got 9 countries to join, and Senegal just determined that it was going to join as well. But we've already helped 7 million small farmers in Africa to pool their resources, access lower credit, link themselves together as one producer group so that they can market and sell more effectively. And we've seen those farmers increase their yields and their sales by 10, 20, 30, in some cases 50 or 100%. I met with a young woman farmer who had started off with 1 hectare, now has 16. She has been able to achieve enough growth that she's now bought a tractor. She's hired 8 people. Now, that's not what we ordinarily think of as business or entrepreneurship. But if you think about the number of Africans who are involved in agriculture and giving them the tools where suddenly they're getting better prices for their food, their crops, they've got access to a marketplace, they now are getting enough credit to be able to mechanize their operations. And now suddenly they're able to hire some people in their surrounding villages. You've just suddenly seen a small business grow. And the next step may be then they start doing some small food processing. And next thing you know, now they're suddenly supplying these processed foods to a school. And next thing you know, they're supplying those processed foods to the whole country. And so not every business is going to be an internet business, an app. You know, I mean, I know that's where the young people are all, man, I'm just going to create an app. I'm the next Facebook. That's great, and I hope some of you do that. But when we think of development of Africa as a whole, especially if we're thinking about broad-based development, then part of what we have to recognize is that a huge number of people inside of Africa are still in the agricultural sector, and the work that we're doing is trying to create capacity for those small farmers who are essentially small entrepreneurs from being to be successful, because if they've got more money in their pockets, now they can afford to buy your app. All right? So thank you very much for the question, Uganda. Appreciate it.
Mr. President, we're moving over to West Africa now, and we're going to take a question from Lagos, Nigeria.
Well, welcome, Mr. President, to Lagos, Nigeria, home to perhaps Africa's biggest youth population. I'm Maokwe Ogun for Channels Television here. And here with me in the studio are a selection of some of Nigeria's brightest and best. And I must tell you, Mr. President, they're mostly women, so you better be careful around them. And they say they're on the march, and they have their question ready. Over now to you, Aisha.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Aisha Maina, and I represent 7 other people here. In acknowledging our challenges and our responsibility as the young leaders of Nigeria to accept our challenges and make the difference, we would like to thank you for your support to Nigeria and Africa as a whole. The largest resource in Nigeria is our human capital, and we would like to ask a 2-pronged question. The first is, how can the United States deepen its investment in deploying technology that would develop our vast human capital as well as the education of her youth? My second question is two-pronged. Sorry, Mr. President. Considering how long the war on terror has been on for, would you say that we are winning the war on terror, seeing that there are new terrorist groups developing in Africa, one of which is in Nigeria? Thank you.
Well, those are both great questions. Thank you. And before I answer the question, I just want to be clear. I am surrounded by opinionated women in my house all day long. So I've got good practice dealing with strong women. You guys haven't met Michelle, but you've probably seen her on TV. She's not shy. And Malia and Sasha, they're just taken right up after her. So every night at dinner, I'm surrounded. In terms of human capital and young people, I think there is no doubt that the most important investment any country can make, not just an African country, any country can make, is educating its youth and providing them the skills they need to compete in a highly technological, advanced world economy. Countries that do not do that well will not succeed. Countries that excel at training their young people are going to succeed, because these days businesses can go anywhere. And one of the key criteria for any business is, where can I find outstanding workers? Where can I find outstanding people to manage a plant or manage my sales force? And if you have countries with high illiteracy rates or limited skills, you're going to have problems. And I want to be clear that this is a problem in the United States, not just a problem in Africa. One of the main things that I'm spending a lot of time on is trying to push Congress to improve our early childhood education, because it turns out that children are most susceptible to learning between the ages of 0 and 3. And so working with parents, particularly mothers, around reading to their children, proper nutrition, stimulating activities. Then when they get to school, making sure that our schools are prepared and redesigned for today, because a lot of the schools in the United States were first created during the agricultural era and aren't always appropriate for what's required today. And then on into what we call community colleges, which are 2-year colleges or 4-year colleges and universities. Somebody should have told my helicopter to quiet down while I'm talking. Yeah, so across the board, we're having to rethink education and workforce training. And one of the things that we want to do is to partner with a country like Nigeria and identify ways that we can provide direct value added, whether it's in helping to train teachers, helping to incorporate technologies into the education process. So, for example, one of the things that you hear across the continent is, because a lot of Africans still live in rural areas, it may be difficult for them to access education and schooling once they get beyond a certain level. Well, are there ways in which we can pipe in, essentially, a university into a rural community? And suddenly you've got the lecturer right there without the same costs or obligation for a young person to take on when they go to travel far away from home in order to study. And so I think that there's some excellent ideas that sometimes we're doing country by country, depending on the country plan. But this is an area where I would love to get more input from young people in terms of what they think would work. And so part of the Young African Leaders Initiative may be to elicit additional ideas from those, particularly those who may be working in education, and have a sense of what are the barriers right now for young people in order to succeed. Now, with respect to the so-called war on terror.